There's a kind of discipline that makes the world grow quiet around you. A level of stillness, so sharp it cuts through excuses like steel. Most people never touch it, because to reach it, you must first bury the part of yourself that clings to comfort. You've seen it before, that one person who never breaks rhythm. Rain or fire, pain or fatigue, they rise. Same hour, same breath, same motion. While others crumble after the third week, they keep walking. They do not speak of motivation. They simply move, and the world whispers, that's not normal. They're right. It's not. In the mountains of Japan, Zen monks once created a system so unyielding that even time itself bowed to it. They called it Gyoji, the practice that continues itself. It is discipline without gaps, effort without applause, repetition until repetition becomes silence. But this way isn't for everyone. To follow it, you must kill the weakest version of yourself, the one that bargains, the one that delays, the one that says, tomorrow. Raphael didn't know that. Yet, he was a modern man, a programmer, clever and ambitious. But cleverness doesn't conquer chaos. He had all the apps, all the tools, all the plans. Yet every goal ended the same way. With a whisper, I'll start again next week. The cycle was merciless. Monday, excitement. Wednesday, hesitation. Friday, surrender. Sunday, guilt. And again, he tried everything, tracking apps, accountability partners, morning routines. That promised miracles. But nothing held, because he wasn't fighting laziness. He was fighting architecture, the ancient design of his own mind. One day, in the quiet of another failed morning, he read something that stopped him cold. It was a story about a Zen temple in Kyoto. Since the year 1200, every single day at 3:30 a.m., a bell rings. And since 1200, without missing a dawn, the monks rise. Not at 3:29, not at 3:31, at 3:30, sharp as the edge of a sword. No monk ever lies in bed thinking, should I get up? The question simply doesn't exist, because their identity has already answered it. That realization struck Raphael like thunder. He understood that he'd been living in negotiation, a man constantly asking himself for permission to be strong. But monks don't ask, they act. The secret was not willpower. It was identity. It was declaring to the world, this is who I am, and then living as if there were no other option. For Raphael, that was the first awakening. Not the birth of motivation, but the death of choice. And from that silence, his new life began to form, like a blade cooling in water after being forged in fire. There are two kinds of promises. The first is made in whispers, to yourself, in the dark. The second is made before the world, where silence witnesses you. The first fades, the second transforms. Raphael didn't yet understand this difference, until he discovered what the monks had always known. Gyoji, continuous practice without gaps, wasn't about effort. It was about transformation. In Zen monasteries, when a monk takes his vows, he isn't promising to try. He is burning the bridge behind him. There's no going back. No, I'll see how it goes. No, I'll start again next week. Only the path. At I Hate Temple, since 1200 AD, the same bell has echoed at 3:30 a.m. The same sound through centuries of war, famine, snow, and silence. And still, every monk rises. No exceptions, no complaints. That is Gyoji. Why? Because for them, the vow isn't about time. It's about self. Your brain, Raphael learned, separates commitments into two boxes, reversible and irreversible. Reversible means I can quit if it gets hard. Irreversible means this is who I am. When monks vow, they step into that second box. There's no door behind them anymore. A neuroscientist at Harvard once found that when we make public commitments, the primitive brain interprets failure as death, because in the old tribes, losing your word meant losing your place. And losing your place meant dying alone. The brain still remembers. So Raphael stopped whispering his goals. He stopped treating discipline like a secret. He wrote a declaration. I am a man who meditates at 5 a.m. every day for 90 days. He signed it. He posted it online. He told everyone. His girlfriend laughed. His co-workers said, "You're taking it too seriously." Good. That was the point. Every comment became a wall behind him. Every eye watching him became a torch in the dark. Each time he wanted to stop, he saw their faces and felt the shame that would come if he broke his word. Again, that pain became his weapon. The first battle came quickly. Day 3. The alarm struck like a blade at dawn. His mind whispered its usual lies. You're tired. It's fine to rest. But this time, another voice rose from within. If you quit now, you must face them all and say you lied again. He sat up, cold floor beneath his feet, silence heavy in the air. And for the first time, he understood what it meant to move before thinking. The declaration had cut away hesitation. He wasn't forcing himself anymore. He was protecting the man he had sworn to become. Discipline didn't feel like war that day. It felt like truth, like finally standing on solid ground after years of drowning in excuses. And from that moment, the world began to change around him. Not because it was easier, but because he was harder. Even with his new identity, Raphael soon learned that the mind doesn't surrender easily. A vow silences negotiation, but the body remembers the old ways. It whispers, it resists, it drags you back into comfort like a tide. Every morning, at 5 a.m., the war returned. It came not with swords, but with softness, with the gentle voice of fatigue. Sleep a little longer. You've earned it. That's how the old self always speaks, not like an enemy, but like a friend. He realized the monks had a second principle, non-negotiable hours. Because every time you decide when to begin, you waste strength deciding instead of doing. Each question burns energy meant for motion. When to start? How long to train? Whether to skip a day? These are the questions that rot the warrior's spirit. Raphael fixed his hour. 5 o'clock. Every morning. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was empty. No messages. No noise. No one make excuses to. The hour before sunrise became his battlefield, and the world slept through his war. The first week was hell. His body rebelled, dragging his thoughts through mud. The alarm would pierce the dark, and his limbs felt carved from stone. But he moved anyway. He sat. He breathed. He worked. No victory. No glory. Just quiet repetition. By the second week, something shifted. The resistance softened. His body began to anticipate the battle before it came. He woke moments before the alarm, as if the warrior within him had taken command. No thought, no choice, only movement, like steel drawn from its sheath. Precise, inevitable. That's when Raphael understood the secret. Discipline isn't about willpower. It's about removing the need for choice. When the hour is fixed, time itself becomes your ally. You no longer wrestle with the question, when will I begin? You already began. You simply continue. But the mind, clever and restless, found a new way to attack. If it could no longer argue when, it would argue what? One morning, meditation felt dull. So his mind said, let's read instead. Another morning, he thought, let's do push-ups first. Each change seemed harmless. But behind every variation was the same trap, negotiation. Raphael was still choosing, still adjusting, still leaking power through cracks of indecision. His hour was fixed, but his form was not. And chaos crept back in through the smallest gaps. He felt the truth return. Discipline dies where variety begins. The monks had already discovered this centuries ago. Their teaching was harsh, almost cruel. Repeat the same form until the self disappears. Raphael didn't fully understand yet, but deep down he sensed that the next lesson would break something inside him, something that needed to break. Because to master the form, he'd have to surrender the need to feel free. Freedom, Raphael learned, isn't the absence of limits. It's the mastery of them. A sword is only free when it stays true to its edge. A warrior is only free when he no longer argues with the path. Variety, the world told him, keeps life interesting. But he began to see the lie in that. Variety doesn't create freedom, it creates hesitation. Every time you change what you do, your mind opens a door for weakness to enter. Should I do push-ups or burpees today? Should I read or meditate? Tiny cracks, endless noise. And in those cracks, your old self waits, patient and smiling. So Raphael made a decision as sharp as a blade drawn across the old patterns of his life. He would do the same thing every day for 90 days. No variation, no compromise, no novelty. 20 push-ups, 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of reading. Same order, same time, same rhythm. He locked it in like a monk beginning his own Ango, a sacred period of practice. So intense it burns away hesitation itself. The first week, he felt mechanical. Friends called him obsessive. His girlfriend rolled her eyes. "You're turning into a robot," she said. He smiled, because that was exactly the point. To become unbreakable, you must first become predictable, not to others, but to yourself, so that your body and mind move without argument, like river and stone flowing together. The third week was brutal. The voice in his head screamed for change. "You're bored. Mix it up. This isn't growth, it's madness." He felt trapped in his own discipline, chained by the routine he'd built. But that chain was holy. He didn't know it yet, but the chain was his freedom. By the fourth week, something broke, not his spirit, but the resistance inside him. The negotiation grew quieter. The noise faded. By the sixth week, he was halfway through his push-ups before his conscious mind even noticed. The practice had begun to live on its own. This was the moment the monks called the surrender, when effort dissolves into motion, when a blade no longer feels the hand that wields it. Modern science calls it automaticity. An MIT researcher once wrote that after 66 days of repetition in the same context, the basal ganglia takes over. Action becomes instinct. There's no more should I or must I. There's only I am. On day 35, Raphael got sick. On day 40, he was traveling. Old patterns whispered, "It's okay. Skip today." But he remembered Dogen's teaching. Practice must continue without even a moment of gap, for in that gap the old self returns. So in a cold airport bathroom, Raphael dropped to the floor and did his push-ups. He meditated in the Uber. He read on the plane. Nothing was perfect, but everything continued. The practice was no longer about perfection. It was about continuity, a river that never stops flowing, even when the world turns to drought. Because the moment it stops, it ceases to be a river. It becomes memory. Raphael's practice would not become memory. Not anymore. A river that flows, even when reduced to a trickle, is still alive. A river that stops dies. Discipline is no different. Raphael finally understood this. The greatest enemy of consistency isn't laziness, it's gaps. The lie of perfection whispers, "If I can't do all 20 minutes, I'll wait until tomorrow. If I can't train properly, I'll rest today." But rest without intention is retreat. And retreat, repeated enough, becomes identity. True rest is chosen. It is still movement toward the goal, a pause within rhythm. But skipping, avoiding, surrendering to impulse, that's not rest. That's death disguised as comfort. When Raphael traveled, there was no gym. When he was sick, there was no strength. Still, the practice continued. Push-ups in a narrow bathroom. Meditation between airport announcements. Reading one page instead of 10. Imperfect, yes, but unbroken. That is Gyoji, the practice that continues itself. It flows through chaos the way water flows through rock, slow, patient, unstoppable. People began to notice. His co-workers said, "You've changed." His friends called him obsessive. Someone even said, "That's not healthy." Raphael smiled, because they were right again. It wasn't normal. When your discipline makes others uncomfortable, it means you've reached the edge where mediocrity ends and mastery begins. Normal people call it obsession because it exposes their own surrender. But obsession, to the disciplined, is simply devotion. Then came the final lesson, pre-solution. The monks had practiced through earthquakes, wars, and famine. Their temples burned, their halls flooded, yet the bell never missed its hour. Because they didn't decide under chaos, the decision had been made long before. Raphael did the same. He wrote every obstacle that had ever broken him. Sickness, travel, guests, hangovers, doubt. And for each one, he wrote a command. If X happens, I do Y. If it rains, push-ups in the garage. If guests stay over, silent meditation in the bathroom. If exhausted, 2 push-ups, 1 minute of breath, 1 page of reading. No negociations, no excuses. He removed thought from the battlefield. There was only response. When X happens, move. A psychologist at Yale once said that when you pre-decide your actions, you remove the fatigue of choice. Your mind becomes a blade, sharp and undivided. By day 70, Raphael had stopped thinking about his practice altogether. He simply lived it. He would wake, move, breathe, read, unaware of beginning or ending. The routine had become rhythm, and rhythm had become nature. On the 90th day, he completed his Ango, 90 days without a single gap. But the goal no longer mattered. He wasn't proud. He wasn't relieved. He was different. People said, "Your consistency is scary." He smiled again. Good. Because when your existence itself becomes a mirror that frightens comfort, you have crossed the threshold. You no longer do discipline. You're discipline. It is not about willpower anymore. It is about rebirth. The death of the old self who begged for permission to grow, and the birth of the new one, silent, steady, unbreakable. That is Gyoji, the practice without gaps, the way of the monk, the rhythm of the sword, the silence of dawn. When people ask how he did it, the answer is simple. He doesn't. He is. If these words reached you, don't just listen, begin. Write your vow below. What will you practice until there are no more excuses? Your promise is the first cut, your silence after the proof. Subscribe, not for more words, but for reminders to return to stillness, to rise when the world sleeps, to walk without gaps. Until then, stay calm, stay disciplined, stay unbreakable.